even before I got in networking. So that's one of the things that I think led me to networking, is because it clicked in my head and it made sense to me. So I was like, oh, let me roll with it. Welcome to Debt Free in IT. I'm your host, Mike. This podcast is for anyone who's looking to get into the IT industry, whether it's for a career change or you're just interested. I think you come to the right place. Today's episode stems from a question, or might I say a couple of questions I received from a listener of the podcast. So like I said, the questions were sent via LinkedIn, and just going into a little bit of the backstory. So this listener, they've been listening to the podcast. They currently hold a Security Plus certification, and they have some military experience. So I'm not going to go too deep into their type of military experience, but they have some military experience and they have that Security Plus. So we all know that Security Plus is worth its weight in gold, especially if you have that military background. And even without that military background, like I said, that CompTIA Security Plus certification is one, if you're trying to go the security route, is one of the certifications that I think almost all IT professionals would recommend you to pursue, or just to get some knowledge in. So this listener, they have this Security Plus certification, and they're interested in pursuing the network engineering path. So they're interested in going down the network engineering path. So like I said, they sent a couple of questions, and I thought that, oh, well, these questions will be good to just record in case someone else has the same question. So without further ado, without holding y'all up any, let's get straight into it. So this first question is, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give your past self to avoid certain career pitfalls? So if I could go back in time, the main thing I would probably tell myself is to gain confidence early in yourself. So that's one thing that, as a newcomer coming into an IT position or IT role, a lot of times you don't have that confidence. It's a lot of times where you may know the answer, you may be scared to speak up, or you may know the answer, but someone else speaks louder than you. And a lot of times they may be totally wrong, but they speak with that complete conviction. And when they speak like that, a lot of times you'll say to yourself, oh, they got to know what they're talking about. And then at the end of the day, they're totally wrong and you was right. So one of the first things I say is gain that confidence in yourself. And then after gaining that confidence in myself, one of the first things I would have did was probably moved up to a networking role sooner. So like I said, my career path was a little bit slower. So I took the slow route. Some people may say the scenic route. So I took the slow route where I held positions such as computer operations. Then I moved to help desk. Then I moved to desktop. Then I moved to networking. So if I could take it all back, which I don't regret doing none of that, just because at every position I learned something else that I could carry into networking. So I learned how that organization works. So when I got in networking, I knew what issues belonged to what group. So if something came to the networking group, I could point out, oh, this is something that desktop would handle or something like that. So I don't regret none of that, but I would have moved up a little bit faster. So if you get in this position where you get your CCNA, or let's say you get your first role in the IT organization, or you're working in IT, one of the first things I say, gain that confidence and don't be afraid to move up. So like I said, that's one of the things I think I should have did a little bit faster, was move up, because once I got to that networking role, I realized it wasn't as bad as I put it out to be in my head when I first got to that organization. So that's something that, like I said, it took me roughly a couple years before I got to that networking role. So if you're in this position, gain that confidence and don't be afraid to move up to a higher position. Don't be afraid to accept more responsibility. It's all a part of the growth process. Second question is, could you share a bit about your career path and what led you to your current position? So my current position, like I said in a couple of videos, I'm currently a Cisco networking instructor. So I do that on a full-time basis. And then also, like I said, I do this podcast on as a part-time basis right now. So hopefully it turns full-time. But right now I'm a full-time Cisco certified networking instructor. So, and my path was basically, like I said, computer operations at a healthcare facility. Then from there going to help desk. Then from there going to desktop. And then spending my last couple of years in networking. And around the time, like thinking back, I never would have thought I would have been an instructor. So I never would have thought that. So just thinking back, like I said, around the time it was 2020 when COVID first started. So, a lot of people started thinking, started soul searching. So I wasn't really looking for a job or anything like that. But I'm one of the people, I'm always on Indeed just to see what's out there. So just from me being curious and seeing what's out there, it led me to my current role. And then, like I said, I'm one of those people. I'm a Pisces, so I blame it on me being a Pisces. Is my way of thinking is always unorthodox. So where most people would have seen the path and say, okay, I'm just going to stay the course and do this. Me, I always think that, okay, what's an alternative? So I know that, okay, doing networking and doing IT support, but okay, this being certified for Cisco or being certified for another certification, it has to have some other viewpoints or some other roles besides just doing IT support. So around that time, like I said, I saw this position. I was like, oh, that seemed pretty cool. So I kind of went down that path to where now, like I said, that's what I'm currently doing. And like I said, I enjoy it. And one of the biggest reasons I think I might have jumped ship and who is it to say? I might end up going back out in the field too. So that's one of the things I like about IT. So you're always learning. So I'm currently always learning things like that. So I think I could probably jump back out there and probably not skip a beat. But one of the feelings that I wanted to give to someone is I remember when I was a student and when I graduated, my instructor at that time was fortunate enough to be able to get me to take the CCNA certification. So I actually took it twice. So, and me taking it those 2 times, I passed it the second time. That is what ended up leading me to getting that hospital role, what ended up leading me to where I'm at now. So it all started from that. So I wanted to give that same feeling to someone else. So I knew that I enjoyed talking about IT. I meet plenty of people. I always just, if they find out I'm in IT, they start asking me, hey, how about this? You heard about this cybersecurity? Should I do this? So I enjoyed talking to people about it. So, which is probably why I'm doing this podcast too. So like I said, I enjoyed talking to people about it. I enjoyed trying to lead people on the right path. So that's kind of how I got at my current position. But one of the things I also liked about technology in general is that you have many career paths you can go down. So you can go down the instructing path, you can go down the training path, you can go down the IT support path. You have plenty of different things that you can do. So that's why I like to be very well-rounded. And then also I'm a curious individual. So it's one of the things where I always think to myself, I don't want to grow old and look back at my past and say, oh, what would have happened if I would have tried this? So I'm one of the ones, if it's on my mind, I'm going to jump out and try it. And if it fails, oh, well, I know the answer then. So that's kind of what led me to this current position. So the next question is, what drew you to the field of network engineering? Okay, so for network engineering, what drew me to it was the way I got into classes was I had to have an answer in to the state by the end of that day, and something that they would approve me for. And just so happened, I ran into a networking instructor on my way out of the building. But once I started learning it, what made me fall in love with it was the fact that it was very hands-on. Like configuring Cisco routers and switches, that relates directly to the job. So even though you may be in a classroom setting and you're configuring hardware, you're configuring a router, you're configuring the switches, when you get out into the environment and you have to do a configuration on a device, you're doing the exact same thing. You may have some different aspects to it, but in general, you're putting that same base configuration on there that you learned from the class. And then as you start to get more advanced, let's say you're putting routing protocols on that device, you're configuring that. Let's say you're configuring OSPF. So a lot of things like that kind of made me where it started clicking, because it's something that I could physically touch. So you had to log into the device, you had to configure it. So I could log into it, configure it. And a lot of times in a lot of the courses, it's repetition. So you start doing the same thing a lot of times. So from doing all that, it stuck in my head because I'm doing it every day. So, and then, like I said, it related exactly to the job role. So that's one of the things I liked about it. And that's one of the things that drew me to networking. And like I said, I've always been drawn to networking, even before I got in a networking position. in most of my IT support roles, networking always came in handy. So I was always practicing it. So I was able to, if I'm troubleshooting a PC, I'm able to look at it and say, oh, this PC ain't on the network. Or, okay, oh, somebody put in a static address on this device. Or I'm able to look at it, oh, this device somehow got the wrong subnet mask. So I'm able to spot out things like that the whole time, even before I got in networking. So that's one of the things that I think led me to networking, is because it clicked in my head and it made sense to me. So I was like, oh, let me roll with it. So the next question is, what aspects of your job or your career in network engineering did you find the most challenging? So with networking, like I said, IT in general, you run into something different every day. So sometimes you're going to have those days where it's the same old, like, oh, I had an easy day today. But then sometimes there's going to be an issue going on that you never saw before. So those days were the most challenging. But those days were the ones you learned the most too, because once you find out what's the fix to that issue, now that issue ain't challenging no more if it comes up again. So things like that was very challenging in network engineering. And then too, coming from the position of doing it in the classroom where you're on a smaller network to being involved in a larger network where you got a PC in your data center, you got to understand how things is routed in the data center, then from your data center, how things go to your closets and so on and so forth. So a lot of it, you have to, the puzzle pieces will start clicking. So if you came from a networking class, let's say, and you're like, oh, I know how to configure this, I know how to do this, but I never seen it in person. So then once you start doing it in a production environment, a lot of times things started clicking. So things will start clicking like, oh, okay, that's why you do this. So being able to piece it together and make things work. So a lot of times in IT, one of the biggest challenges is always you're the one that's going to need to make something work where, okay, we need to bring up this other site, but let's say this site is not owned by us. We're going to have with another company. So things like that, you need to know, okay, how can I get my network out there? So things like that and putting the puzzle pieces together, and every day was a different day. So it's something that you won't, let's just say, get bored of it per se, because some days, like out of a 5-day work week, you may have 3 days that's a breeze and 2 days where all hell breaks loose. So you never know. Every day is a different day in IT in general, and especially in networking. Sorry to interrupt this video. According to my YouTube analytics, 84% of my viewers are not subscribed. If I provided value to you in any one of my episodes and you're not subscribed, please consider doing so, as this does help out the channel. And also, if you're listening to this in your favorite podcasting app, please leave me a review and share this with a friend. Now back to the episode. So the next question is, what skills do you believe is most crucial to succeeding in this field? So if I had to pick one skill, and it may sound crazy because it's not even a technical skill in my view, is you have to have some good soft skills, because in the IT support role and networking, you're dealing with other users. You're also dealing with other coworkers that may be on different departments in IT. So you have to have pretty good soft skills, because you're going to be one that's having to work with these people. So you have to be able to work with these people. A lot of times you're going to get people on the phone that may be kind of already angry, already irate. Then sometimes you're going to deal with other teams that may be having issues, but they're saying that the issue is being caused by your network. So you got to be able to handle those situations without losing your cool. So being a people person, having those soft skills, being able to, even if you do happen to lose your cool, being able to do it in a way where nobody sees it. So kind of like if you lose your cool, if you're on a heated call, don't lose your cool on the call. Wait till after the call, then maybe go on a walk or something where you can cool off. So having those people skills, I would say, is the top skill that I think that anyone needs to succeed in IT and in networking, because you're working with a lot of different teams. You have a lot of different projects going on that may be involving other vendors, things like that. So being a good people person is always top in my list. So building up those soft skills, A lot of times, if you're an introvert, then that may be something that you have to work on because, like I said, you are going to interact with people and you are going to be getting placed on calls where you may have higher ups on the call and things like that, and you're trying to explain what's going on with an issue. So you're going to have run into a lot of that talking to people on the phone, via email, things like that. So having those soft skills is going to be clutch. And then if I had to say another skill set, it's just going to be the overall being up on your craft. So, I know Robert Greene has a book called Mastery where you kind of goes over mastering your craft. So it's one of the things where you need to be up to par on it. So it's because you're going to get hit with all kind of things. So if I would say just being up to par on your craft, and then also, continuous learning. So continuous learning. And then I would also throw some troubleshooting in there. So being able to troubleshoot, that's a skill set all in itself. A lot of times there's something that's really, I would say, is probably hard to teach because a lot of times you don't have to troubleshoot a lot unless you mess up something in a lab environment. So building those troubleshoot skills, and like I said, that comes along and grows as you get more experience. So I remember my days at first starting in computer ops. A lot of times there were some issues I didn't know how to resolve, but then by the time I got in networking, those issues that I didn't know how to resolve, I'm like, oh, dang, I'm laughing now because I'm like, man, why didn't I know that back then? So it's just gaining that experience and just seeing things, taking notes because you get something, an issue that you haven't seen before. A lot of times you want to take notes on what was the fix. So, but if I had to list 2 or 3, I would say soft skills, which people skills goes into that. And then also having some troubleshooting skills. Also, that's probably my main 2, but I would say soft skills is probably number 1 in my book. So the last question is, what is the best piece of advice you have for someone looking to transition into this area? So one of the main things I'm going to say is have patience. So whether you're transitioning from a non-technical role into a technical role, or you're transitioning from another technical role into this networking role. So one of the things you want to have patience. So a lot of times it's hard to get out of the way of yourself, and we all want that instant gratification. We want to say, okay, I'm going to network engineering, and we want to get an offer for a network engineering job that day. We want to get an offer by the end of the week. If we ain't hear nothing in a month, we like, oh man, there's some crap here. There's a scam. We ain't doing this. So have patience because your journey may be fast. Like I've seen some people make that transition fast, but then I've seen some people where that transition takes a little time. My transition coming from non-technical, getting into technical, it roughly took about 3 years. So, and the only difference from me and somebody else is I didn't stop applying. So I was applying. So it's one of those things where you want to have something else going on in the meantime. So if you're already in IT, you maintain that current position, studying up for, let's say, your CCNA or something along that realm, the transition from that role you're at into this networking role. And then also, like I said, just being up on your stuff. And like I said, the biggest thing is going to be having patience because it's possible and it will happen, but no one can tell you when it's going to happen. So it's one of the things where you want to stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. So like I said, it will happen. You need to have that patience because like I said, some people it happen fast, some people it takes a while. But that's one of the main things I would say for someone looking to transition is if you go around, you do your due diligence, whether you go back to school, get a degree, then after that, let's say you may get some certifications, or you may not go the school route. You may just go get some certifications. It's one of the things where, okay, you got the certification or you got the degree and the certification, but you're still going to have to start applying. So you got to start applying until you get that, you catch that break. And then, like I said, you will catch the break, but it's hard to say when. And a lot of this is going to depend on your area. So if you're close to a larger city or major city, like I said, there's probably a little bit more opportunity there. If you're in a smaller city, it may not be much opportunity unless you're willing to drive to a major city. So one of the best things I can tell someone is to have patience. So it doesn't happen fast for everyone. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Hopefully you found some value in this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, you can follow me at debtfreeinit. If you have any questions, you can email me at debtfreeinit@gmail.com, or you can visit debtfreeinitwithmike.com. You never know. Your question may end up the next episode. So other than that, I'll see y'all next week. Peace.